Everybody, we're back with another episode of the Horns Down podcast. Today, we are talking about the truth, and nothing but the truth. The truth about Oklahoma, Team 128 this year. I'm joined by Drew England, joined by Jay, PG, usual crew. Everybody, go ahead and tell everybody exactly where they can find you at.
Well, I'm Drew England. I am one of the co-hosts of the Under Official Review podcast. Me and my buddy Zach Merrill. We talk all things college football, a couple episodes a week. Where you can find us on our YouTube at the Under Official Review podcast, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. And yeah, big Sooner fan. Always loving talking OU, but we talk college football as a whole, and we love doing it.
PG?
Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube, Google, Apple, or Spotify, The PG Show, all one word. Or you guys can come and drag me through the mud on Twitter for any of my hot takes, whether it's food or in college football. So,
of course, last and not least, your boy Jay with Unfair Sports. Thanks for having me, of course, Kchris. As usual, you can find us on YouTube. Just search Unfair Sports. And yeah, it's going to be another fun conversation around Sooner Sports.
All right, guys, we're gonna jump right into this, okay? And so we'll start with Drew, okay? The first question about this year, all right? Did we overestimate the amount of talent on this team?
Short answer, yes. I think I mean, like any of us, you know, we there was a lot of hype coming in, and rightfully so. We felt like and I still feel like we made the right hire and everything like that too. But I don't think we fully understood. Yeah, we had a lot of talent, but there was also a lot of talent that left, and so I think we were weighing too much on the talent that was in the room at certain spots and kind of overlooking the talent that was missing in other spots, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's just kind of my quick little, and I'll let these other two guys hit on that, but that's just and we can go more in depth than that and everything like that. But, you know, we were really high on the offense. You know, we had Marvin Mims, we had Farouk, we had obviously Dylan Gabriel was coming in, Eric Gray, Marcus Major, some of these guys and the offensive line. But I think we missed a little bit on defense and how impactful that was going to be. And, you know, the roster kind of being picked apart a little bit, if you will. So
we'll just go down the line. PG, what were your thoughts as far as did we overestimate the talent on this team this year?
I don't think we overestimated the talent on this team. I think it's still a really talented squad. But from a lot of the conversations that I've had with the guys on that defense, again, this scheme is so complicated and it's so different from what they were doing that they haven't quite picked it up when they weren't really starting to pick it up towards the end of the season, where you really kind of started to see some of the biggest improvements. And so I don't think it's necessarily overestimating the talent. I think it's we overestimated how hard the Venables defensive scheme was going to be and how intricate the offense from Lebby was going to be as well. So when Venables said he needs 3 years to go win a championship, we really probably should have taken that to heart.
All right. They were your thoughts.
So I don't think that we overestimated the talent on it. We knew that the last regime could recruit. They brought in some pretty solid players. They brought in some pretty solid classes too. The problem you run into is what type of players you have and are they in the right positions? It's kind of like when Bob Stoops first got here in 1999. John Blake could recruit his ass off, and he kept bringing in a whole bunch of talented players, but did not put them in the right places. It took Stoops about a year to figure out what positions people need to be at. He started shifting people from offense to defense and from defense to offense, and you start moving things around and deciding who should start, who shouldn't. Brought in transfers to determine if it would be better having this player here or that. And so because of all those moving parts and understanding the true landscape of the team, we didn't overestimate the talent. We just overestimated the execution out there. Look at the Yeah, look at the foundation of the statistics. And I say this on every show I've gotten on, around the table with our boy Ty. I've said it with PG on his, as well as on mine on Unfair. And I've said it with Drew on his. Look at the foundational stats that Brent Venables is hardcore on. Tackles for loss. We were top 15 in the league in that. Look at we didn't get the sacks like we wanted to, but we were middle in the pack on the sack side. Our only problem is that on those third down, those critical fourth downs, we were just giving up big plays at the wrong time. But they were still getting those tackles for loss, which is really a big foundation of his defense. So you know it's there. It's just so many mental lapses. Mm-hmm. It threw everything off. We had the talent. We just didn't have the execution this year. And it sometimes takes a year for teams to be great after execution. Go look at what Kirby Smart did at Georgia. Not saying we're them, but that's really what happened his first year. He took Mark Reich's players that went 10-3 the year before and went 7-5. Had to figure it out, weed things out, came back the next year, and is now propelling himself towards national championships over and over and over.
Let me just ask you guys this. I'll play devil's advocate, right?
The devil don't need an advocate, just FYI.
That is true. That is true. But I want y'all to just kind of take a moment and think about this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about we didn't overestimate the talent, all right? So are we in a better position than what we would have been with Caleb Williams, right? And I mean, that's the outlying factor, right? The X factor, because as much as I still like Dylan Gabriel, but I have been kind of up and down as far as just my critiques of him, because I'm like, man, there's some days where he's really on, and the other games where you're just like, I don't really know what the hell to say. I know
let me grab this first.
Let me finish. I know what OU looks like with him, but I know what OU looks without him too. So this year is just one of those special years for me, just to say, like, I really don't know. But as far as the talent, I mean, I'm not going to say that we were without talent. We had a lot of talented guys on the team. It just, like you said, just poor execution.
Let me jump on that first. Okay, so beginning of the season, PG said this on a live stream or whatnot. He says he misses Caleb Williams. Kind of jumped on him a little bit about it. And PG, I apologize because I get exactly what you were saying at the time. But let me kind of explain something on this part. We have to, as Sooner fans, stop being so spoiled-minded and thinking that every quarterback we're going to bring in is going to be overly elite every single moment. Now, it'd be great if they did, but not all 5 stars work. Not all 4 stars work either. They don't work out. Perfect example. Look at what Clemson's going through right now. DJU was a 5-star. They had Trevor Lawrence before, Deshaun Watson. Hell, they had Kelly Bryant. And for some reason, they lucked out in this year. The one guy that they thought was going to really work out didn't. And that happens everywhere. It's really hard to bring in elite talent that works. Hell, Lincoln Riley ran into that problem with Spencer Rattler. He had Baker as a transfer, Kyler Murray as a transfer, Jalen Hurts as a transfer, brought in Spencer, and we're just like, get him out the game. Boo, tomatoes. You bring in Caleb Williams, and he takes over. So he had a gap. It's going to happen. And so, but with that, would this team be better with Caleb? Hell yeah, because Caleb is an elite player. He's probably the best quarterback in the country. That's something that you can't measure. You know what I'm saying? If you need elite quarterback play to lead you to every victory, you are not a sound team and you will not win anything. And I know that because we've watched that happen 3-4 years in a row with the 2 Heisman Trophy winners and the second place Heisman Trophy winner we had. It's all we had was quarterback play. So for this team, we have to have everything at every level. If we don't have all 3 levels, we're not going to beat Georgia. Caleb would get abused by Georgia with this team and USC because, well, we watched him get abused by Utah. So
twice.
Exactly. And the first game was actually a pretty good one. The second one, they just abused them because they were prepared. Yep. Teams prepare when they know that, oh, nobody else on this team is going to beat us. It's that dude. He's a world beater.
Yeah.
And I would love to have another world beater. I think we got one coming in the chamber. But that's why I give grace to Dylan Gabriel, because I knew he wasn't a world beater coming in. That's not who he was. That's not his game. His game is go out there, be efficient, be accurate, and throw, and hopefully your receivers catch touchdowns that are right in their hands and they're open by themselves. So
don't throw it behind them or anywhere.
Right. Yeah, and it happens. And so I think that next year he'll step up. Go look at the way Josh Heupel played his first year here. I'll just say that too.
I think that's
I think Sam Bradford took a little bit of, and obviously he was a 3-star, everything like that, but it takes these guys time. And for me, and I know there's a lot of hype on Jackson Arnold, and rightfully so. The kid is elite. He can make all these throws.
Mm-hmm.
But I am always a proponent of let's wait and see. Let's wait and see when he takes a snap for the first time in an actual game, on the field, all that stuff. Yes, you can be great in practice. Yes, you need to do that. Yes, you need to watch film, all that stuff, have the intangibles. But let's wait and see what he does before we crown him the savior of our program. Ergo, like you just said, have another Spencer Rattler to Caleb Williams deal when it's not fair to these kids. You know,
Fair.
It's not fair to these guys that are trying to go out there. They're not trying to suck. Okay, I guarantee you that. They're not trying to throw interceptions. They're not trying to do all this. But at the same time, yes, we have been spoiled. I agree wholeheartedly with Jay. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. I have lost sight of it too. But at the same time, you got to understand, hey, at the end of the day, you know, you've got to see the results on the field before you can say, oh, well, he's this and he's that and this and that, and, you know. So that's my thing. But yeah, we were spoiled, and I think we had a lot of high expectations on Dylan Gabriel coming into the season.
Drew, you said something that caught my eye there. We're going to segue into the next.
Well, PG, let PG jump in here.
I was going to go straight to PG for this question right here. PG, what went wrong for OU? We're talking about results, different things like that. What went wrong for OU this year?
Where do I start? No, I think what went wrong in terms of the coaching and I look at it and I go, Oklahoma could have probably won 3 to 4 more games this season if we would have had a wide receiver coach. Because I know a lot of people want to blame, and I've made a video on this, and we've talked about Levy many times. Here's the deal. I know people want to put the blame on Dylan Gabriel, and some of it is well-deserved on Dylan, but not all of it. Because those wide receivers are clearly not in the right spots, and here's how we know for sure it's on the wide receiver room. They were dropping balls like crazy. And so that tells me that I can go with my intuition that those players and those wide receivers, as talented as they are, they're not playing to the best that the capability of that room could be playing at, because they don't have a leader. And I'm not saying LaDainian Washington's not that leader. He's just not tenured, right? And I think that I think it's been a spot where it's been up in the air. So, yeah, I just say if you had a wide receiver coach, you probably win 3 to 4 more games this year because your offense is going to be able to hit.
I disagree with you there, PG. And the reason why I disagree with you there is I'm kind of asking this question. Wasn't Washington directly under Cale Gundy, who was basically grooming him?
I mean, yeah, but these
receivers were all taught by Cale. These weren't taught by Washington. So all the initial failures and stuff, honestly, still falls beneath the old coach. They're learning based upon him.
Yeah, but you don't have Cale in the locker room to help fix the.
Let me ask you this, PG. When has a coach ever dropped a pass or caught a pass?
I mean, the coach hasn't dropped pass, but the problem is they didn't have a tenured wide receiver coach.
So if you're a Division I coach or a Division I player, you need a coach out there holding your hand every play.
And yeah, I mean they definitely do. They are there to learn and develop, so they do need a coach out there to help them and get them in the right spots. And that's the thing. Dylan Gabriel's overthrows is because there's a timing problem. Players aren't running the right routes and those kind of things. I know people don't want to look at it that way, but that's what it is.
I would agree normally with you, PG, on something.
Broke down every single game, and for you to just pin it directly on the wide receivers. That's a soft take.
Yeah, and I would normally agree with you in a lot of capacities, PG, but this one I definitely can. And the reason why is the biggest problem when it came to these catches were the veteran receivers that had been there for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all coached by who? The coach before. Right. So it's not that the adjustments didn't happen or them working with them didn't happen. We can't put this on Washington as if him walking in is the reason why they started falling apart. They were doing this stuff the year before under Gundy. It's something that they have to learn. They're still growing. That's the thing about it. Weiss hadn't been healthy. That's the only thing that sucks for him. But looking at Mims, who was there last year, Farouk, who was there last year, that's why I can't blame this on. Everyone wants to point it at the new guy as if he's the problem. It's not. When it comes to wide receiver coach, their biggest thing is going to be recruiting. He did a good job of keeping all the key wide receivers we need to keep. I understand Anthony Evans flipped, but Anthony Evans flipped twice. This is the second team that he left from and went to a third, which is all because he started getting attention because of us, honestly. Arkansas, he was there. He flipped to us because we started giving him attention. And then as soon as Georgia gave him attention, he flipped again. Yeah. You can't blame that on the coach.
What about we kept that away. What about a guy like Drake Stoops this year? Had an excellent year. Great year. Caught a lot of passes. Caught some touchdowns. What's the excuse that he had a really good year and the other ones didn't?
I mean,
Gavin Freeman.
And arguably down the stretch, Drake Stoops may have been your best wide receiver.
And Farouk started coming out of nowhere as soon as Gundy was gone.
But like those last few games, you were like,
can you pin this just on the wide receivers coach, or you can put the blame across the board and say, it was a first year scheme, just like you said about the defense,
right?
Well, I mean, you could say that, and I'm not. I didn't. If I said it was on 100% on the wide receivers, that's not what I meant. But I would put a good chunk of the blame on that wide receiver room, and specifically not having a wide receiver coach. Just because, like I said, multiple times I watched receivers specifically. They looked like they were not in the right position. They didn't look like they knew what they were doing out there.
I get you with that. I think your issue with that, though, is I think that was a complete all of the offense. Because one of the things I think either you pointed out or Ty pointed out, PG, one of you two pointed this out when we were live streaming before was the running backs and the wide receivers were not blocking very well down the field. The tight ends weren't blocking down the field very well. Then when they started picking up their blocks, we started running past the other team. So that's a combination of, I think it's more so scheme. I think what Drew was saying, the problem is this is a first-year scheme, a complex scheme. This isn't Lincoln Riley's pretty simple scheme that's complex for the defense and not for the offense. I think it was scheme and just timing of them understanding where they're supposed to be.
I'll tell you this, too. The quarterbacks, and this is something that I've kind of picked up on, stuff like that. The quarterbacks have different drops for different plays.
Yes.
Not same 3-step drop, not same 5-step drop, not none of this. It's a very complex offense that he is trying to run and trying to teach these guys. And yes, a lot of it is timing, but the onus goes on the quarterback, the offensive line, and the receivers. It's not just the receiver's fault. It's everybody not being on the same page as a whole. So I don't like pinning it on just one person.
And I mean that's what we'll go to, because I mean I think the run game was good. Maybe the play calling or sometimes the scheme. I think my biggest problem with OU offensively this year, and what I think went wrong, is that because of the tempo that we want to go at, we put ourselves in a lot of bad positions because we're moving the ball. We're here on our own 30. We're going in on the 30. Now we're on the 20-yard line. Now we're back at the 30. Now we're back at the 40-yard line. All because of false starts, holding calls, all different things, because it's just sloppy.
Discipline.
Guys are not in their spots. Guys are not doing this. We're moving too fast on some parts. You see the wide receivers. The wide receivers are there. They're ready to go. Everything is good. Here goes some offensive line penalty. I mean, there's a lot of different things like that were happening. It felt like they were trying to just kind of play catch up, and you're like, what the hell? But when it gelled, it definitely gelled.
Yep.
My biggest problem with the offense this year, and where I think that we failed, is I can point it out to you right now. I can go to the exact game, Texas Tech. My problem is that why weren't we doing more of that this year? And what I mean by that is why weren't we stretching the field and going vertical? Now, somebody's going to come back and say, Kchris, we were. Dylan was just missing guys that were wide open, and he wasn't passing the guys that were wide open running down the field. because there's a lot of times earlier in the season you can see guys just literally running open down the field, and it's like DG already locked on to the guy that he wanted to go to. But my biggest problem was like, why aren't we going vertical? You guys know it on every podcast, Ty podcast, Jay's podcast, PG your podcast. I got on there and said we can't go through this east and west game right every drive. Can't be a lot of look, I'm fine with the little quick swing routes, the quick outs, little screen, little bubble screens, different things like that. But man, we got to open this playbook up. Yep. And I think I think that you saw that the capability, the possibility in a game like Texas Tech, because I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of teams played it straight up sometimes, like Texas Tech, and they did some things in those zone. But man, Gabriel was able to just throw the ball up and say, okay, my guys are better than yours. You saw the incredible grab by Mims. Mims was running through busted coverages like left and right. They couldn't keep up. And then you throw a guy like Theo Weiss, who actually started to make plays out there in that game. And you're just like, why haven't we been doing this all year? So that was kind of my biggest problem with OU. And I think that was one thing that really hurt us this year that went wrong, was just the big play, the splash play. Early on, it was just Dylan was too inconsistent as far as trying to nail those guys. But then towards the end of the season, it was drop passes, or it was just basically we just did a lot of east-west swing route, bubble screens.
Well, because when you open up the vertical passing game, that underneath stuff's going to be there. So I think that more of a balance of that, I agree with you, would have been better. But again, and I'm going to say this, and I may piss a lot of people off with it, that's what you get with a first-year actual OC. Okay? Guys that think that he called plays at UCF, you're crazy. Josh Heupel did. Guys that think that he called plays at Ole Miss, you're crazy. Lane Kiffin did. Okay? So this is his first official OC job where he has control of the offense.
And the thing is with that too is this is also the first year for these players to see in this scheme and trying to understand it. Like this scheme is a built up of Lane Kiffin, Art Briles, and Josh Heupel all meshed in together, and it was successful for the most part. Sure. Look at where the team offensively ranked. They did what they were supposed to do. The biggest issue is that sustaining. And we even looked at and I know Ty did this. Me and Ty over at Around the Table Sports talked about this. If you look at it, our wide receivers stopped blocking in a lot of plays. And that's where a lot of our run plays kind of stalled. When we started to stall was because the blocking got mediocre. And once you start getting mediocre blocking, Eric Gray's really good. And we learned that this year. He can make the magic happen by himself. Not like a Bijan Robinson can, who if you paid attention to the statistics behind Bijan, most of his yards were after the first hit, after the first contact. He was creating his own offense because their offensive line was so bad at Texas. Him and Roschon were doing it themselves. Eric Gray can't do that. Eric Gray needs a solid set of blocks, but then he'll zoom through and he'll find the hole. He can't do it on his own, and that's what we started running into with him and Major, is that the blocks weren't there. And so outside of that, I just think that I can't blame one person. I just think that's a bad piece. It's everybody. It was a collective.
Figuring it out together. And
it was a collective.
Yeah, and I think that we had high hopes because, yes, we still have a great staff. I like Levy. I think he's going to do a good job. But I think that we're all learning how to be a unit together.
The one thing, and this is like what PG mentioned when we were talking about Caleb Williams, the TCU game is what it was. It was a TCU game. I think it was TCU. No. It was a home game. It was Kansas State. It was a Kansas State game. We were talking about it. PG mentioned missing Caleb, and that's the one thing that you kind of miss is a quarterback that can ad lib and do his own thing. Yeah. It felt like this entire season that Levy was telling Gabriel not to run. He was kind of like, "Hey man, try not to scramble." But when he would scramble, Duke can scoot. Yeah. I mean, he dipped 70-some yards for a touchdown. He's like, oh man, he can actually do this. But it felt like they kept pulling him back to don't do it. Focus on throwing it. When the offense would run so much better when he is a threat. And he's shown us so many glimpses of being a threat, coming back in the pass and then just bolting. Mm-hmm. If we got a little bit more of that, I think the team would have probably won about those 3 more games that we've been talking about.
But at the same time, obviously we saw, when he went down,
Well, that was a dirty hit. I think that was different. He wasn't really getting tackled this season. You know what I'm saying?
You didn't have a. Well, I say this with quotes. You didn't have a whole lot behind him.
Oh, well, no. Yeah, you didn't. And remember, when Lebby and them came in, I think this is the one thing that a few people have been going wild about is why we didn't play all these other players. Remember, Brent Venables started this job exactly a year ago yesterday. Literally a year ago yesterday. From there, they were finding staff members. He got his staff put together over the next 2 weeks. They were trying to hurry up and get the national signing day, well, early signing day. And from there, the transfer portal was basically starting to get dry. You got to remember, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to bring in people.
Not only that, but I mean, I think word out there is that there were some guys that I think that they had some regrets about as far as.
Well, Jackson Dart was here. Yeah. If they would have gave him a chance to start.
Well, that's the thing that we screwed up on is when Lebby said, "This is my quarterback, this is my guy," and already given who else, I mean, who in their right mind is going to want to? Oh yeah, I'll come in and
be a backup.
You know.
Yeah, so you're scraping the bottom of the barrel whenever you say that your quarterback is your quarterback. That's what I was going to say. Is like we were scraping the bottom of the barrel, and then we said,
"Jay,
this guy's our guy."
Now we can't talk about what went wrong with OU this year without talking about the defense, guys. We've been giving the offense a lot of love. PG,
we get there.
Yeah, I was about to say.
You know we're gonna get there. But I think more so the point. What my point I was going to make was that this team took some time to have to find players that were still available to recruit, get to flip, and get them into the team. And they had like a month to do it. Like National Signing Day, beginning of February, they basically by the end of December finally had the staff together, go through spring practices, realize, oh shoot, we need another quarterback, and they'll get General Booty. So you start to figure out what you got, and they're like, man, they literally scraped the bottom of the barrel to figure out what we have. When you had a
third-string quarterback from another school come in and think that he can compete at Oklahoma.
Exactly. And the problem with General Booty was, as much as I like him, who else was recruiting him? Nobody was.
Nope.
Go look at his offers.
There was a reason why he was at like 3 or 4 different schools.
Yeah, that's why he was at that JUCO. He was doing good numbers, but there's a reason why other schools did not go after him. And it's just, he's just not ready. He's not. And he's still young. Luckily, he's redshirt sophomore. He's still young. And then Evers was a flip from Florida, and he only flipped because Dan Mullins got fired.
Yeah.
So you're scraping and just trying to find pieces to add to this class, which they put together a top 10 class.
There's other things I would love to talk about, but I'm not going
to. Not divulge into.
I'll leave that for the group chat.
All right, we'll talk about that in the green room. But anyway, Chris, you go ahead and just jump into the defense if you want to, unless PG wants to add something to it.
PG's over there.
PG, go ahead. PG, go ahead. What were your thoughts about the defense this year? Where did we go wrong with the defense?
Yeah, and to be honest with everybody, I don't think the defense was as bad as people made it out to be. Because, and I know people will say this is weak, you can't do this, blah, 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 blah. In reality, in a lot of these games, you take out the 4 or 5 huge chunk plays the defense gave up, and this is probably a top 15 defense. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It really is. It was just, there were a couple times in each game that the defense is not in the right spot because, again, complicated defensive scheme. A bunch of these guys have grown up in a completely different opposite end of the spectrum scheme, right? You know, these guys just had to learn how to tackle this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just had to learn how to tackle this year, right? You know, like, that's why, like, you know, I get it.
Just go for strips and not tackle the guy?
Yeah, I know, right? But, I mean, that's the thing. It's like,
it's a weird concept.
I get it. Those plays are a part of the game, but I want to look at it and go, okay, outside of those big chunk plays, because those are fixable, how is the team playing outside of that? And the defense played really, really solid outside of those big chunk
Matt,
plays.
hit it right there. When your defense.
There you go.
Yep, that's right there, Matt. That's a great.
Well,
when your defense is on the field for that many plays and asked to do an awful lot on defense, that's going to be hard for anybody in college football to put on their shoulders.
That's true. But
it's like PG said. Like PG said, those chunk plays were the big problem. And the funny thing about those chunk plays is a lot of them came when they started getting tired. When they started getting on the field for too long.
Yep.
I did a whole breakdown of like the first couple games. Each game I was talking about our pace and how we kept having possessions under 2 minutes and how that was eventually going to become a problem, how that was going to become an issue at a certain time. Even though we're scoring, that defense was getting the ball back. Eventually, when we start giving up long drives, teams are going to be able to exploit the defense because we lack that one thing that Matt's talking about, playing 100-plus snaps, depth. If you ain't got guys, that's what Georgia does. Georgia just rotates another 5-star in that's ready right after that other 5-star comes out to go get some water.
Damn.
We didn't have that this year. And we will, now that we got 2 classes under our belt and some transfers that they wanted a year or 2 ago, then you're going to be able to see that. It'll be different.
Well,
next year.
and you, like you're to your point earlier, this time last year, we were just trying to get people in the door, hey, your office is down the hall over there, you're doing this. Now we have a full season. We got bowl prep, do all that stuff. You can actually have a normal, quote, start to an off season when you already have things in place.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so I
and
think
the
you're going
other-
to see a little bit more of a, natural process as opposed to last year with, scramble mode for a month.
Well, and the other thing is too is this staff now has an identity to give transfers and recruits.
Yep.
See, because what a lot of people don't realize and understand is they sit down with me and I ask them, how are you going to use me? They're having to show me Clemson and Ole Miss film. They can't even give me film of what they're going to do here at Oklahoma. Now they can tell us exactly how they're going to use you on the field, and now they have an example because they can tell you, hey, listen, we really want on this 33-35 defense, but we don't have the personnel for it.
Well, especially
so
with, like,
you're going to
these
come in and
D-linemen,
make an immediate impact.
We need a big D lineman right down here in the middle. This is where you're going to be. This is what you're going to be doing. That's a great point. I like that.
Yeah.
If Tarver was healthy, we would have probably had him do it. He's 335, but at the same time, I heard he came in out of shape and he's been hurt the entire year.
Another guy too that's going to probably feel a little bit more and play a little bit 3 technique, stuff like that too, who had a pretty decent year and got some playing time too, was Grayson Halton.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, Grayson Halton was a monster.
Yep.
But that's really, the big thing here.
Well, the depth, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the depth, and then having the correct personnel on the field, and that's really where you're going to see OU excel here in the portal and in the closing days of the recruiting cycle for 23, and then going into 24 is they're going to be able to tell guys you're going to be able to come in and make an immediate impact because we need personnel to be able to run what we do. And look, it works.
So I'm just going to jump back in here and say, and I think that I agree with everything that you guys have said, but just more so back to the point, though, I think here's another thing that we got to talk about: pass rush, man. I think that's really what went wrong. They no pass rush even at the beginning of the game when we were fresh, and then Kier Costner, he said, hopefully I'm saying that right. He says the D was not 48 to 60 plays from being good. Let's stop deluding ourselves. I kind of disagree with that. But on the back half of this, I do agree with it. There was no pass rush. Our back 7 struggled in zone coverage all season, and our scheme had edge rushers playing 5 technique. No. Let me clean some of that up for you real quick. I don't necessarily think the back 7 struggled in. I think once Colden was inserted into the lineup, you saw DJ Graham kind of go out. You see Jaden Davis, obviously he got injured. But once those guys started playing, that secondary was better. Problem with the zone coverage is the same thing that happened last year under the Grinch system. Linebackers just don't know where the hell they're supposed to be, at least in these 2 different schemes. I know they're asking you to do 2 different things in those schemes, but it was still the same problem. As good as Danny Stutzman can be and the potential that we think he has, still a lot of mental lapses out there, letting guys run across his face. You can go to the Iowa State game. There's several different plays. He finally got the pick because he jumped a route and you saw that he was actually there. He was paying attention. He was alert, kept his head on the swivel. They ran the same play. It was the same play that had been killing him all game long. Agwebu takes terrible pursuit angles, but Agwebu also, his coverage skills are not the best. It took us a while to finally say, it took everybody on this panel, it probably took them to about at least about the 5th, 6th game until you finally said, you know what? Deshaun White is he's playing better. He's getting sticky good. That guy knows that position now, the cheetah position. So I mean, I get what Kier is saying, but at the same time, I struggle with some of that just a tad bit, but I'm just going to say that our zone coverage was more, in my opinion, I think it was more of a linebacker thing than it was a secondary.
And I think that's progression and maturation through the season, and it speaks to that depth that we were talking about. Guys are still trying to figure it out, and it's the old added thing. No matter what you're doing, the more reps you get at it, the more you work, the better you study something. Hopefully, the better you're going to get.
PG, tell me this. How many sacks did Reggie Grimes have in the first 3 games of the season?
I'm sorry, my thing cut out. What'd you say?
How many sacks did Reggie Grimes have in the first 3 games of the season?
He had 4.5 sacks, and he had
4.5 sacks.
One through the regular or through the
right.
Season.
We noticed that there was a lot of pass rushing in those first 3 games. Right now, we did play some up tempo teams in Nebraska. They actually did ended the season in a decent way. They almost won the Big Ten West. I think if I forgot who needed to lose for them to jump Purdue to actually go to that game. Craziness over there. But my point is, thank you, Matt. And PG, as PG said, we started doing that. We started to see some of that stuff come up. The excitement was there, but the problem is that as we got down and teams started to wear us out, once they got tape, real tape, they started scheming against us. Agwebu, he works hard. Sometimes working too hard will ruin your ability to play. You'll do over pursuits. You'll think too much. And the game didn't come naturally to them as the season was going on. It's like some games we'd see it because, like you said, you kept seeing glimmers of it. You kept seeing glimmers of like, oh man,
what else?
This team can be
it. What else was there a factor after those first 3 games? What else happened? Competition started getting better.
Yes.
Yeah, and I will argue because talking to Jonah Laulu specifically, he told me that he was. Like they were getting right there. Like they were applying the pressure to the pocket and collapsing the pocket. They were just getting there 1 second too late.
Yeah, and you got 2.5, 3 seconds.
Yeah, and you'll see it towards the end of the season. Jonah Laulu and Ethan Downs exponentially got better those last 2 or 3 games of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like
you noticed
pressure,
it.
Yeah.
Well,
you noticed it. You're right.
That's supposed to happen. Is guys are supposed to get better, but we would have liked it to happen obviously earlier in the season, but guys were progressing, and your hope is that some of these younger guys that did get some snaps this year can take that and move forward into next year with it.
And that's
we saw it against O State. When we got to that game, the Iowa State game, we were showing it. We showed it in West Virginia as well as Texas Tech. The West Virginia game, man, if we would just had just a couple of catches, we would have been fine. It was always that inches. It was inches that we were losing by. Like, I forgot who put up the stat, and I know me, you, PG, I think we talked about this a couple times. Actually, we talked about this in the group chat, how those games that we turned around in last year and won because of, heroics by Caleb Williams, that we didn't have that capability this year, and we ended up losing those games instead. It was like 4 or 5 games. I mean, all those one-possession games we could have easily won if we had like a world beater that would just take the ball and just do it themselves. But that's not how our offense was set up. That's not what DG is. DG is a quarterback. Like, he's a legitimate drop back, throw the ball, hit the right timing if everybody's in the right spot.
Like when you said when he needed to run, he did a pretty good job,
But
he did. I wish he did it more.
But OU wasn't outscoring people like that last year, and that's what people don't understand and realize.
Yeah.
This Oklahoma team last year to this year, very similar. Because last year, the difference was, and Brandon Drummond and Parker Thune talked about it perfectly, they just had winners. They had guys that had been on this team for a long time, and they knew how to go out there and win. They knew what they needed to do. This year, they don't have that. But these teams are very similar with what we had last year and this year, and in the way that the games have played out and the final scores, right? One-possession games, there's a lot of them.
But I would disagree with that point because 60% of our roster was a turnover, and 40% of our roster was only guys that had played, and none of them had played really other than your Marvin Mims and Drake Stoops on offense, couple O-linemen, stuff like that. Farouk got a little bit of time. But defensively, you had guys that, didn't play a whole lot of significant snaps last year some things.
Downs, those guys.
Yeah,
they played heavy snaps, but at the same time, this was the first year that they were those guys
in a new scheme.
But
in a new
scheme.
scheme.
But you have to look at it though and go, the defense last year was able to make plays when it really mattered, and they couldn't do that this year. But
because
if the defense didn't make those plays last year, but if the defense didn't make those plays last year, they're probably in the same category as they are this year.
Sure, but you're also talking about guys like, IT and all those guys that were on that defense. We didn't have those dudes this year on the defensive line.
Even with that,
Jay, I'll give you the last point that I want to. I got a special question for. I'm going to start with Drew on this one, but go ahead. You can have the last point on this one.
I was going to say that the other thing to look at when it came to the defense is this is a new scheme, and as the season went on, you started noticing that they got out of the vanilla and they started to get more complex, and that's when you started to see the confusion come in. The players started getting confused. They started not being in the right spots. When they started dialing it back to a little bit more vanilla, they started looking better. And I think that was what it was, is that they may have tried to accelerate doing more complex stuff a little too fast. Also, as much as the fans would have loved to see all the freshmen go out there, this team would have looked a lot worse with a bunch of freshmen out there trying to run around with athleticism and try to figure things out and tiring themselves because they're taking the wrong angles to try to get to players. I would have loved to see a lot more Kannick.
Where's the like button at down here?
I would have loved to see a lot more Kannick or a lot more Joan Spears or Gentry Williams, but I recognize that if you put them in, they were going to get abused. Not because they're bad. They're just not there yet scheme-wise.
Yep.
So definitely agree with it. I think Matt Hayes said 80% of this team is new on the 2 deep.
Yeah, Matt, you're right.
But we're going to get to this question right here, okay? And Drew, we're going to start with you. Don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we want to move on, but I think this is a real question that a lot of people want to know.
Yes, I'm single.
It's about to pop up here in any second. Here you go. Was there a roof problem or a levy problem?
All right. I'm gonna take on this one because
go ahead. I'll let you go first.
I think it's a lot simpler than we think it is. I'm gonna say roof. I don't think it was Levy. I think it's roof, and I think the problem with roof and with Levy goes back to the 2 deep. 80% of our 2 deep was new. A lot of these players are learning 2 new schemes. We were trying to do too much. We were trying too hard to get complex too early with players that weren't ready for it. The offensive side, like I said, the biggest problem we ran into was blocking. Blocking when it came to the stalls on the plays. Now, Levy didn't call the games perfectly. No coach does, because defenses have film. That's their job. If other teams don't eventually get stops and figure something out, they should be fired, period, on the spot. You're supposed to get at least 1 stop a game. But our biggest thing play-wise to me was blocking. You could tell it. Just go watch it. It looked like they just stopped blocking on random plays, and then they start blocking great again. Defensive side, though, they just got too cute, too complex. Players looked confused. They looked out of place. Should have been a lot more vanilla. Plus, Ted Roof's history just isn't very appealing for him. As an analyst, I bet he's fantastic, but actually calling stuff, reel that bad boy in, boys. Really.
I will say this though: was he actually calling stuff though?
I mean, that's the rumor. The rumor is that Venables was actually taking a CEO role, and he was letting Roof do the defense, and he was trying to focus on running the team itself at large. If he wasn't, then he was getting a little too zealous with these young players and letting them run around, knowing that he needs at least 1 year. This is my last point. Go look at all the other big schools, your Georgias, your Bamas, all the schools that do Clemson. You rarely see a freshman play unless they're a freak. And the reason is it takes you about a year to not only get your body right, as well as understand the scheme, to know what the hell you're supposed to do. That's why they're deep. They can be so deep because a lot of times they bring a player in, they're not doing everything. They're there for one thing, get them out. We had to play players that we weren't supposed to be playing yet. Yeah. And you started to notice it. That dude was out of spot. Stutzman, love him. He was out of place most of the games. So, yeah, got to remember that.
Sure.
Pass the road.
For me, I don't know. You could. There's a whole thing you could dissect on both sides. So to say one or the other, I don't know. I'm gonna take the easy answer and say both, because there's some, certainly we've dove into, arguments on both sides of the ball, and I think the better question is, will this problem continue, or will we really figure out who the problem is next year? If things do not get better on either side of the football, it'll be really easy, a lot easier to point, oh, well, this is not getting better. Oh, well, this is getting better. So for me, I'm going to give both of them the benefit of the doubt right now and see how it progresses into next year.
Yeah, I think it's more so just a Lebby problem, because the staff was able to adapt on the defensive side of the ball, and you definitely saw it get better. Now, whether that was just players finally getting it, because maybe the defensive side of the ball just has better coaching, I don't know. I just feel like Lebby, multiple times was he doing things that just didn't make sense. Like multiple times where it was like, run the ball, try to control the clock a little more, and we'd be throwing passes. It'd be like a 3-and-out in 30 seconds. And so on the defensive side of the ball, like I know people were on roof, but the defense was progressively still getting better. It just maybe wasn't in ways that showed on the stat sheet.
Yep.
On the offense, you never really saw that improvement like what we saw on the defense.
I don't know.
Did you really see a whole lot of improvement when we never could set the edge on defense?
I saw better tackling.
When did we set the edge on defense one good time this year?
But that's not necessarily what I was looking for. This season,
that's a big problem on defense when we can't set the edge.
I mean,
we were 18th on offense. I think we were doing really good.
Yes, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is multiple times throughout the season, Lebby should have been trying to call a more conservative play calling on the offensive side of the ball. Because why would you? I mean, if you're going to go 3-and-out anyways, passing the ball, go 3-and-out running the ball and taking 2 or 3 minutes off the clock.
Oh, we did both.
Yeah.
We just weren't moving slow.
A great balance
That's the problem.
of mistakes running the football and throwing
Sometimes you just got to go slow, and that's the thing. I never saw that development on the offensive side of the ball with Lebby. Yes, the offense looked good at times, right? 18th ranked offense, but it just didn't seem like Lebby ever adjusted. I saw the defense adjust multiple times throughout the season, and like I said, you saw small improvements that don't show up on the stat sheet from the defense.
I mean, the running offense was 13th in the country. Yards per game.
You definitely saw improvement on the offense with Eric Gray and company and everything like that, and some shots down the field and all that. But my biggest concern was, like I just said, there was times where we were just out of place and not setting the edge, doing basic defensive fundamental stuff, like hold the edge, don't run upfield, like stuff that in any scheme,
right,
is fundamental. That's why there's onus on both sides. So I don't want to give one guy the credit or not the credit.
My whole thing is this right here. I'll jump in now and just say this. Look, I lean more towards the roof side simply because it just doesn't make any sense when you're being multiple with your defense. You got to 3-3-5. You're giving a 3-3-5 look, but you know that you're really running kind of like a base 4-3. You're doing all types of things out of it. 2-4-5. I mean, all types of things out of the defense. But my biggest problem is that we couldn't get out of our own way. The Texas Tech game was a prime example because it's fresh on our minds right now. We're going with 4 down linemen. We're getting a decent pass rush. We're at least active out there. But then we go to the 3-3-5, start running zone, and then they are basically just eating us alive. They're telegraphing where the rusher is, where the running back is going to go. It wasn't until Key Lawrence came and put a helmet on him and said, "You know what? You're not doing that anymore." He got hurt. He goes out the game. Then they just start passing because we're playing soft, shell zone coverage. Same
And
thing against, in my opinion, I think it was the same thing against West Virginia. You're sitting
Yeah,
there
we
yourself
couldn't
like,
fill the gaps. We couldn't fill the gaps at linebacker, and that's what I think that was probably our weakest position was linebacker. They couldn't just fill the gaps.
Matt has been trolling me all show. You better stop with that, boy. No.
But yeah, I think
you can't
yeah.
even play quarterback in the NFL. How are you going to be a coordinator in college?
Hey, there's a lot of coordinators in college that couldn't play in the NFL too.
Man. Shout out to Baker, but no, I mean that was just my problem with Roof this year. It was just the fact that as sporadic as we could say, Levy's play calling was sometimes when he would just go way too fast. I think for Roof, you're just saying, hey man, you put them in a lot of bad positions. I mean, if Ty was on here, Ty would say, hey, there were plenty of times that I saw you guys running at 3-3-5 where it's 4th and 1 or it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and your guys are giving them a cushion. You're not pressing, you're not doing anything, you're giving them a cushion. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's like he knows, you know? One thing you saw a small amount of improvement in, but still not to the level where you would want it to see. What wanted to be is just pre-snap motions.
Yep.
I mean, how many you could count? I think every Big 12 team used some type of pre-snap motion to get us either just off kill or just to really scheme a guy open. Go to K-State. That's all that K-State did all game. Their fullback, their any of their tight ends who were just look like they were just basically playing H-back. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, they basically had H-backs having career days against us simply because we couldn't stop that and we couldn't figure it out.
Well, and that was my point earlier is let's see how it progresses into next year, and if things don't get better, then I mean I'm probably going to have a better argument, but for right now I'm going to kind of give it to both sides because of all the new scheme, everything like that, guys, depth, all that stuff encompassing. And so I mean there's a lot to work on, but there's also a lot to be optimistic about at the same time. So
think about it this way for next year, kind of like what you're saying, Drew. Will the most of this with the players that are going into the portal and the players that are be coming out of the portal, just wait, you'll see some Clemson guys show up here very soon. You're going to see a different team. It's going to be a team that's going to be built based upon the way that these coaches want. They're still filtering through the old regime's players, and we still have a lot of talent. Remember, like I said, Riley and them brought in 4 and 5 stars and some solid 3s. We just got to get them to play the way that BV and staff wants them. A year in Schmitty's conditioning, it takes you about a year to get your body the way you want. If you've ever exercised, you have to lose weight and get in shape, it takes you about a year to really see the results that you really want of consistency. And these players are doing that now. You'll see it next year.
And that's a perfect way to segue into kind of just the ending portal recruiting. Any tidbits that you guys got to share, anything that you know. I think kind of the biggest shock to a lot of us this morning was the news about samples and what they're doing up there in Arizona State and Colorado.
Genius.
They're putting together a staff now. Let me tell you what.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that we were talking about samples before and potentially coming here or whatnot, but what it looks like is they gave him the passing game coordinator position title and everything. So if you're passing game coordinator at 27 years old, that's huge. Because that's so huge, it makes sense for him to take that job. Like, if we couldn't give him that, which we can't, it makes sense for him to take that position. That's a lot more responsibility, and it looks much better on your resume, especially when you're trying to become – because you can tell he's trying to be an offensive coordinator somewhere. That's his next step. Like, the one thing I love about, like, DeMarco Murray, it's not that DeMarco Murray isn't ambitious, but he knows what he's great at. And he really enjoys being great at that. And just being low-key about everything he does. Dude just goes out, gets running backs, teaches them how to play the way he did in the NFL.
He's been
chilling.
like that as a player and
right.
Like that too.
He's just low-key chill.
He doesn't want the spotlight.
Right. And so I don't think he'll ever leave from being a running back coach or a recruiter because you can tell that's something that he enjoys. But when you have guys that are super ambitious and want to keep moving up, the problem you're going to run into is that once they get those opportunities somewhere else, they're going to bolt. And it makes sense. It's what you're supposed to do in this game. This is how college is set up. And so because Levy's first year as OC and he's passing game coordinator and he's going to want to improve his self to get a head coaching job in the future, we're not going to – we won't – it'll be probably after Jackson Arnold before we really hire somebody to be the passing game
Just
coordinator.
like with the defensive coordinator position, obviously, I think a lot of OU fans want Roof gone. There's a new name that pops up every other day for these jobs, just to be honest with you. I mean, and there's guys and the good thing about it, I would say, okay, the bad thing is we haven't really made any splash hires or we haven't made the move yet, right? But the good thing is that at least you know that they're doing their due diligence with these guys and they're trying to get guys that actually fit what they're really wanting to do. Because I feel like with the names that I've heard for defensive coordinator, you're like, okay, these guys are known for running a 3-3-5 and running it effectively, right? Being able to know how to really those play calls and kind of know what they want, right? And even with those guys, they all have different styles of how they want to use it, where they're aggressive running downhill or they're just really methodical. Kind of, you give me what you want, and I'm going to, adjust to that as the game goes on. And you just hear different things like that. So I think help is on the way in that aspect. Offensively, I mean, it's on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, you hear there's names that you hear as far as the wide receiver coach just hasn't really, panned out. And you're kind of like, are we really just putting feelers out there or what? But it's some guys that definitely make sense. As far as just the portal, I think it's interesting to point out kind of what you said with some of the Clemson players of the fact that, hey, there are some guys that may have not had that much production or the numbers per se at Clemson. But then again, you kind of have to also just factor in that, hey, these guys were recruited by our head coach, right? And these guys, it just may have not worked out for them with the new defensive coordinator there at Clemson. So it'll be interesting to see if we take a chance on some of these kids as far as how they pan out and is BV's vision of them and his system, is that still something that rings true, right? Obviously, like I said, recruiting wise, I think we're doing really well. I think we're gonna close on some kids. I heard some stuff about Wagner today. Colorado has definitely made a push for him, but I think we're still in prime position. I say prime. That's
a whole new meeting now.
There's a whole new meeting now. Trace Ford. I see that Parker Thune is saying that there's like real smoke with him from Old State coming here. Senior.
Yeah, he's from Edmond. Yeah,
he's right up the road. Yep.
Huh?
PG, what you got?
Ford is from Edmond. He's right up the road.
Yeah, he's from Edmond, Santa Fe. So, but yeah, I mean, transfer portal. There's going to be. People think the transfer portal has been crazy the past 2 days. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
There are.
You want to sing it for us?
No, I can't.
Baby,
maybe we'll talk about it in the green room. But yeah, no, there are some huge names that are about to hit the transfer portal. And if you thought what is already in there is turning the college football world upside down, just wait. Oklahoma,
there's one.
Oklahoma is going to be getting some really good guys, and they're in the running for some really good guys. So
there's one in particular name out there that's going to hit the portal that people are going to be like, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah. And here's the deal. And Wilt Fong said it best, but you almost have to be back channeling these things. If you don't, you're going to fall behind. It's not necessarily that the coaches are directly talking to these people. It could be players hitting up players. It could be boosters hitting up the players. At the end of the day, it's like if somebody, especially a really big name guy, hits the portal, they likely have a destination they're already going to. Yeah. They just got to sit there for a couple of days. So just wait and see. Recruiting trail's about to get crazy. Transfer portal's about to get crazy. And this Oklahoma team is going to look a million times different and a million times better next year because BV is taking best fit, not best available.
I do have like a few players on my wish list as
Yeah,
far as
it's
that.
around
Hey,
Christmas time. What you got?
Wait, are you trying to?
I'll give
I
you
hope you're not wishing
the
for Brian
first one.
Breezy.
The first one is up the road. I'll be quite frank with you. Let's go back to OK State. Defensive side of the ball. Perfect cheetah. Perfect. However you want to play him, that kid can play all over the field.
Mason Cobb? Oh, okay.
Kendall Daniels.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I
It's a
mean,
good name.
I watched him from the first game that OSU played to the last, and I was like, hey, that kid has a chance to be special. I mean, he looks the part. And I don't know. That conversation just went south so many times with him trying to get to OU. But I mean, that's a kid that if he hits the portal instantly, you got to be looking and saying, hey, that kid's a talent. Obviously, I know a lot of people would say Colin Oliver, but Drew, what you got?
Here's another name that I wouldn't mind seeing because of a veteran wide receiver that he could come in and play, but also he wants to play running back, so there's that too. But Presley is another name that's an Oklahoma kid that State, he's in the portal. That but there's some other issues there I think too. That but I mean he could I mean he'd be a good fit I think in our offense.
Yeah,
Keep
who I would like to see.
Oklahoma.
I'll
Keep the
give you
Oklahoma kids in Oklahoma. That would be a great thing. And you can tell that Venables and them has made that a focus, which I 100% appreciate.
Here, I'll tell you the biggest difference last year, and they didn't get a chance to really do it because they just got in. But this last offseason, I seen more or talked to more Oklahoma staff members and everything like that than I ever saw when Lincoln Riley was around, because they make a point to get around the stadium. I saw one or two of them at the state championship games this last weekend that I never saw the last couple years around, because they want to watch these kids. They want these kids to know that they are there. Whether they're recruiting them or not, they want to be there, and they want these kids to know, hey, if you're good enough, you're going to have a chance to come to Oklahoma in our state.
I'm hyped about these McCullough brothers that are coming in. The way that it look like it's promising. Dason is a cheetah roll type at 6'5", 230. Good God. So imagine Isaiah Simmons. So between him and Canick, and then you're going to add Eric McCarty out of McAllister, all three of them on the – oh, God, it's going to be scary. And then you add the little brother. Huh?
Does anybody know what happened with McCarty? Did he tear his ACL or?
He tore ACL, PCL, and meniscus. So
Okay,
he's gonna have a recovery coming back. But from
Good.
what I heard, I got to talk to his some of his coaches there at the 5A state championship game. All love, didn't go so hot for McAllister there. Carl Albert kind of put the screws to him a little bit, but I did get a chance to talk to Coach Burris, their defensive coordinator, and then Coach Mazey a little bit. But yeah, he did suffer a significant knee injury, but it's not like it used to be back when I think, when I was in high school. If it was like 05 and I tore my ACL, that might have been a wrap. But now, they seem to be coming back bigger and faster and stronger. And so I don't think that's going to be a problem. But I think, that is something to watch a little bit. Eric did tear it up pretty good. So
now, is he going to be an early enrollee though? Because if he's an early enrollee and he's get to Norman, that's going to help him out tremendously, being able to hit those recovery
for sure.
Yeah, I'm ready to see between him and Megwa, who came here basically after rehabbing after surgery, and Braylon Colgrove. I'm ready to see how we rehab them and do well. This name, Justin Flo. So he was interested in Clemson with Venables. He was recruited heavily by Venables and Bates. And I think that's a name to really keep your eye on potentially coming here. He just didn't work out in Oregon. It wasn't that he was bad. It's just overall scheme-wise, it just wasn't a fit.
I have some stuff on that. I don't think Justin from everything I've heard, I don't think Venables is going to take a look at Justin Flo.
Yeah,
that's no bueno.
Here's another name that is interesting, and I know we talked about it a little bit in the chat and everything, but a guy that is seemingly, all indications point it's not a done deal yet, but coming back home is Austin Stogner. What are your guys' thoughts on on Stog, and do you think he ultimately ends up coming back to OU?
I love it. I thought Stog I thought he had a lot of good traits as a tight end, and in 2020 he had that best year with Rattler throwing to him, and then in 2021 he kind of fell off. Lincoln, I don't feel like utilized him as well. He went out to South Carolina. I feel like had a pretty disappointing season. He's familiar with Oklahoma, right? I think that's really it, right? He's hitting the portal.
He's close to home,
trying to get back close to home.
Yeah.
He's familiar with it, and quite honestly, I think he sees new opportunities with Jeff Lebby.
I think he also saw how much we used Willis, Braden Willis, and he was like, y'all can use me even more than that. And then having Llewellyn and them getting ready to pop up, I think he saw an opportunity to actually get a whole bunch of catches.
So with him and Parker, and Parker being gone.
Parker's gone.
Yeah, like that opens the door up. But I said this to Ty yesterday on his show. Shout out to Ty Around the Table Sports. Braden Willis is the more athletic tight end, but the better tight end, just traditional tight end, is Stogner.
Yeah.
Only thing that you're hoping Stogner can do is actually block the way that Braden Willis was able to. That takes Stogner from being a late round guy to probably being a mid to late round guy, but may possibly, if he has the type of season that he would want to have, catching and all the rest of that stuff, that propels him into.
But you can put a guy like him and Caden Helms if he blows up. Caden can play a slot. He can play he's athletic enough to where he can play out in space a little more.
Yeah.
You put those two guys in same formation, stuff like that. That can create some good matchups for some.
Well, that's the whole thing. I think PG, we were talking about that, and that's what I was saying is that Caden Helms is going to be the tight end next year that really opens up the field and can make those plays.
Yep.
What you have, in my opinion, in Caden Helms is I like to comp him to and I haven't seen him obviously do it at the college level yet, but I feel like he's a Greg Calcaterra. I feel like he's a guy that's that versatile. He's fluid with it, right? But with Stogner is just is a good tight end. He's a solid tight end, and I think that the potential that he sees himself having, and the potential that we think he has, I don't think he's even scratched that yet. So it's a really good get. It's a solid get for him to come back, and I think that he'll blossom in this.
I think Jimmy put something out there, and we're not forgetting about Llewellyn too. Llewellyn certainly has a lot of talent as well, and that's the beauty of Oklahoma is where that depth creates competition, and that'll be a good room if those three end up, being in there and everything like that. That's definitely gonna, I think enhance our tight end room. Plus with the skill set and the coaching ability of Joe John Finley, that's a great room right there.
Well, and Oklahoma really has to start showing that we can utilize the tight ends at a high capacity, because Oklahoma is not been historically in some of these really big races for some of these really big tight ends. But in 2025, there's a tight end currently at Allen, Texas, playing with Michael Hawkins. And if Hawkins ends up here, there's a really good chance you can land him. But you're going to have to start making your case now, because the Georgias of the world have made their case. And that's going to be a hard battle to win.
No, I mean, well, you also got to remember, you got to look back at some of the history that we've had. Mark Andrews did come through Oklahoma. Jermaine Gresham did pull up and play at Oklahoma.
Trent
so we've
Smith,
had some. We've had some tight ends. It's just we've got to get back to being consistent. So you're right, PG. We've got to put the stamp on there and show that we're going to keep churning out tight ends that are going to go to the league and do some things.
Who's the next guy, right?
Yeah, who's going to be next? Mark Andrews is the next is the real question right now.
Sure.
Mark's making money.
That's who's going to be the next Mark Andrews. At least that's what they say.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, Jermaine Gresham was closer than Mark Andrews was, but both of them were 4-star guys. Jermaine Gresham was probably the closest one to a 5-star. That's my point. Oklahoma should probably be in more elite contention for some of those elite tight ends, and they can
Well, the other thing too is, and not disagreeing with you on that part, you're right. But the thing is the way the landscape changed too, the game changed, and now these coaches are starting to recruit differently based upon these guys too. So you're right. We need to get into those doors because we need to start going after these 6'7", 245-pound tight ends that are built like offensive linemen and run 4.40s. We totally need to be in there having these conversations, but it's all because the game is changing for the tight end. The offense is changing, and we're gonna get there. The good thing is our offense is innovative enough for
Don't
that.
forget about that's funny. Sorry, I'm reading comment. Hank said Keith Jackson. He said, "Don't forget about Blake Bell."
Oh, hey, the Belldozer, baby.
Blake Bell's got a Super Bowl, so
He does. Belldozer,
Yeah.
you're
Hey,
right. You're
I'll
right.
tell you what. So does their deep snapper, James Winchester. My
It's
guy
true.
Hey,
from
No,
Washington,
you know,
Oklahoma.
now is
And
there a
Creed
chance?
Humphreys.
Yeah, so is there a chance that Anton Harrison and Wande Morris could find themselves in Kansas City? Because it seems like Kansas City loves Bill Bean-Bow bred offensive linemen.
Oklahoma North up there.
Hey, good
Hey,
chance
Kaden-
for that.
hey,
Orlando Brown too.
I've had Caden Green on, and we've actually talked about that. You know, Caden Green growing up loving the Kansas City Chiefs. He's like, it's funny how many Oklahoma players end up in Kansas City.
Yeah, well, my Arizona Cardinals, we got a couple out there too.
How are y'all feeling about the portal though? Are there any names that everybody should be on the lookout for as far as just, hey, we're in the conversation of possibly getting these guys at least in the early days, or no?
Not really anybody that for people that are okay, for the guys that are already in the portal, I think everybody already knows about them. For everybody that's already in the portal.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to talk about the people that are not in the portal yet.
No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, guys they're in the portal. I think that we've discussed some. There's definitely a few at Clemson that are probably we're open to looking at because now it's a year out, and so I think it's fair game now. It's not a hey, I'm poaching your guys. It's a hey, they're in the portal. They're unlike a certain coach did last year for other places. But
Hey, I'll say this, and I'm gonna keep it a buck. We're tampering just like everybody else.
so yeah.
So
Well-
just we are.
I mean, yeah,
Everybody
we're-
tampers.
It's
We
not.
are too. Promise
long
you.
as you
A lot of those kids that are gonna pop up the day that they can sign, and we get them. It ain't because we just had a conversation with them on Monday, and we were sitting there with tea with their mom and grandma talking, and their dad. No. We've been talking to these kids for months.
Well, yes, but the other thing is too about Venables and Clemson is he told those kids, "You're going to stay there for a year. You ain't transferring over here."
Sure, and
The
that's
Clips
why
kids,
I
I
said-
get.
Like, so now if they leave, it's a little bit of a different story.
Oh,
because,
Clemson
like,
is different. I'm talking about other kids that you're going to start seeing.
Yes.
Like I think there's
yeah.
a couple of
Yes.
players I've heard that we've had a lot of conversations with that if they decide to come here, it's going to be like,
hey,
how the hell do we land them?
people are going to have to remember Venables has Venables and Bates. Just those two alone have a lot of relationships all across college football with
Yeah,
five
true.
stars galore. So there is going to be some huge names that come out that OU is going to be in. So
Come
Let
on,
me
man.
just say
I'm
this,
I'm,
Matt.
I'm not gonna be delusional, man. I'm gonna keep it
Hey.
a buck. We gonna be real here.
As long
We doing
as
it too.
as long as you're keeping score in college football, it's going to happen no matter
Yep.
where you're at.
You ain't cheating. You ain't trying.
That's right. SMU did it the best.
yeah. So is there anybody, Jade or Chris, not to steal the show from you, but is there anybody that you guys expect to hit the portal from OU? Because I know they're asking about Marcus Major, and I don't expect Marcus Major to hit the portal, but I do expect guys like Jackson Sumlin and maybe some guys like that to hit the portal. Is there anybody on your guys' mind that maybe hasn't gotten the time or just somebody that maybe doesn't fit BV's culture that you guys expect to hit the portal?
Man, for the most part, I would say I think that the names that we thought would go into the portal have hit the portal.
I'll just do that. What's that little emoji thing that you write like this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Truck.
that's why.
Honestly,
that's
I'm
all
in the
thinking.
same boat. I
There's a
feel like
couple names
everybody.
that are still kind of seesawing a little bit, but I'm not. Like
you have to, and it's
confident
hard to
enough to
really,
really
say.
say.
Yeah, it's hard to say, not only because it's day and age, but because hell, we got to wait until spring ball is over with to see who else is going to get
Well,
out.
I think too, you only have about 20 days or so of this
Yeah.
transfer portal period to, like you just said, who's coming in and kind of where do I stand in there, sit in the pecking order, and then you'll see some guys summer, spring, kind of move out. This is the first part of the ebb and flow of the transfer portal.
Yeah, this is the first window, which I think ends like right before National Signing Day, and then the
That's like
second
the
window is
20th, I
like
think.
May. Yeah, something like that, and then May is the second window.
Yep.
And for
early
this
signing day is
one,
the 21st, right?
your early signing days are 21st and
Yep, so-
23rd through
yep.
23rd, and then actual national signing days in February. So we'll see players. We'll probably see at least 2 more players hit the portal after the bowl game. I'm gonna say after that game, you'll see them do that, kind of like Caleb and Mario did. They waited until they played the game, did their duty for the year, and then they're going to bounce if we see any more go. I think we're done on the earlies. I think the only players that we will probably see from now on will be after the bowl game, and it'll be probably more of a exit interview and the staff saying, hey, look, there's a very low chance of you getting game because of who we've got coming in.
Some of them we'll see based on the guys that will get in the portal, the writing on the wall too.
Exactly.
So,
and that's what a lot of this stuff is. And that's a good thing. And that's a good point to kind of transition into this real quick. When you look at the transfer portal, the only time you should be concerned about your team is if you're losing a bunch of starters that staff brought in. Like what Oklahoma State's dealing with right now. They should be terrified because they're losing some key contributors that staff brought in. When you have a new coaching staff, they tell the players up front, just like Coach Prime told them at Colorado, I'm coming and I'm going to bring my own luggage, and it's Louis. So he's going to bring his own luggage with him. And like Venables is telling players now, look, we had a year. We worked it out. Didn't look like it's going to work. You may want to check out the portal, see if you get opportunity to play, because I don't think you're going to play here.
Let me jump in here. Jimmy, no, I don't think Key Lawrence is going to be one. I think they have plans.
Key Lawrence is back.
Key's coming back.
Key's coming back. I can confirm that. Key's coming back.
Kier, I would love it. But I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there.
Who?
I'm talking about right here on the screen. Second,
I would love it.
Third thing, just back to my wish list, just real quick. I would say Kendall Daniels, Christian Leary, a solid quarterback that could come in and compete for that QB2 job or even a starting job. That would be on my wish list.
It's not going to happen. Jackson Arnold's going to be taking all of the second string snaps next year.
I mean, but
we'll probably move Micah Bowens back to a quarterback from wide receiver so that we can like have just.
I don't know, man. And that's a name that I'm waiting to see about too. But man, I don't
think he's going. He was at Penn State and basically they told him you're not playing quarterback probably at this level. He came here, they put him back there, and he's basically like, nah, man, I don't think you'll play quarterback at this level.
One guy that I'd really love to see is Boobie Miles.
Hey man,
bring him in.
I heard in the grapevine,
hey, he'll spin,
that he had knee surgery and hip replacement surgery, and he might be ready.
Hey, his uncle give him a ride. He ready to go.
But yeah,
and
Fred Davis.
To Sooners Cowboys point, he put in the chat. Guys like Peter Woods, he thought would at least get a look from OU. No, I mean that was a Clemson guy recruited by Bates and Venables. If he goes anywhere at this point, it's going to be Alabama if he flips. And then with the James Smith and Kwan Russo, those guys are Alabama Florida split. They're not coming to Oklahoma.
Yeah, no.
That's an interesting name right there on the screen for sure.
He'll be wide receiver next year, and I heard that he's doing good. I heard he's doing really good transitioning.
Oh, DJ Graham? Oh,
yeah. I heard that he's doing really good transitioning.
Yeah. Well, this kid played wide receiver in high school, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But more so picking up the offense, getting the timing right. That's really their biggest problem with most
and he's
wide
had
receivers.
Time in that a lot of people don't know that he made that move a while back. So he's had some time in, learning the system. So
you'll probably see him in the bowl game a little bit.
Yep.
Hopeful. Hell, to be honest with you, I want to see a lot of Barnes, a lot of Sawchuck. Not really.
All right, Sooner Cowboys. Let's not go that far.
Whoa, somebody getting too froggy in here.
Wow.
Yeah, let's not go that far because I know some stuff about the wide receiving core for next year, and I don't think Graham's going to be the best.
But he's got some hands. Hey, we all got hands.
But but yeah, no, we'll jump on the FSU game later. But I definitely want to see a lot of Sawchuck, a lot of Barnes. I'd love to see that. I want to see young guys in this game play and get a chance, kind of like we saw last year. We saw some guys really, and I think that's kind of what really, I wouldn't necessarily say fooled is the word, but that's what got us hype about this season, because we saw some of the talent, the younger talent get their
You
chance.
like Ethan Downs and Danny Stutzman last year in the bowl game got some time, and that's where they kind of you started seeing them. And by no means did they have a disappointing season at all. But yeah, I agree with you. I think there'll be some guys like that'll emerge a little bit that you're like, oh, they got some potential. They got a chance to help us. Yep. Yeah. There's a chance I may make the trip. I don't know yet. We'll see. But it'll be it'll be fun to see.
Well, with that said, guys, I mean, unless you guys got anything else to say, I think we've been here for an hour and 20. So I'll go down the line and I'll let you guys again tell everybody where they can find you at. Drew.
Drew England, co-host of the Under Official Review podcast. We're actually doing a live tomorrow night, 7 p.m. on our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that fun stuff. We talk college football. Tomorrow we're doing our college football recap show, just recapping the whole season, talking conference championships, and then we'll talk about just give you some keys and just breaking down, not really breaking down, making picks or anything, but talking about the bowl matchups and everything like that. And we'll be doing our own awards, if you will, too. So it'll be a fun show tomorrow night. Check it out.
PG.
Yeah, for all you people that just hate Lincoln Riley, you guys will love this. But Lincoln Riley's already losing out on quarterbacks at USC. He just left the high school for DJ Lagway a couple hours ago. But I've been told that DJ Lagway is not going to USC. He is all Florida, maybe a little bit of Baylor. So it's always nice to see old Lincoln Riley continue to lose out on quarterbacks that he potentially should be winning. So, but y'all can find me, the PG Show, all one word, on YouTube, Apple, Google, or Spotify. You guys can find me, the PG Show _. You guys can come pull up and harp on me a little bit for my hot food takes. So.
And Jay with Unfair Sports, just search for us on YouTube at Unfair Sports. We're there. Thank you all for pulling up. Please hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell notification so you can hear everything from the Horns Down podcast, especially when we all jump on here to rant and rave as a family. Kchris, thanks for having us on here as usual. Boomer Sooner, baby.
Yeah, Boomer Sooner, Horns Down.
Oh, yeah.
Before we get out of here, just quick, just yes or no. Is Worthy leaving? I'm hearing that he's staying. I'm hearing that he finally pulled out the Bucks, which is what I thought was going to happen all along.
No,
well, I think
at this point, he's
there
not
was
leaving.
Must be the
talks
money.
about one of the coaching staff leaving. Turns out he's not. So I think that was a big part of it too. Is the relationship he has with one of his coaches is really important to him. So I think he's going to stay around Austin.
Now, maybe in the spring he leaves if, a specific wide receiver at USC hits the draft and, these new guys come in there. Maybe
I'll put it like this right here. Worthy, if you see this video, Caleb or Mullet Boy, I think that's all I need to say.
Or a 3-star Manning.
He'll be in the league before that happens.